Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Let's see. Make sure I've got everything here. Okay. Roberto's note taker. All right. That sounds good. All right. I think we are good here. We'll keep letting, maybe Trav, if you can let people in as they come in. But hello, everyone. Good to see you all today. If you are in a place to turn your camera on, please do so. It's so much more enjoyable for me to see faces, which is great. All right, so we've got a lot to cover today, and I have three goals for us. Um, Number one is I want to give you all some strategies of how to keep more of what you earned this year. And if you're thinking, how do I do that? We've got 6 weeks left. Trust me, there is still time to make some tax moves, some smart decisions that can really impact how much you're actually going to put in your pocket this year. So anyways, I'm going to give you guys some really cool tips here. Number two, I'm going to give you a blueprint for increasing the profits on what you already own. Who would like to increase the income that you're making, the cash flow from what you already own and not have to actually buy anything else before the end of the year? Who would be really into that? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear that. And then also, I want to give you all some strategies on how to expand in 2026. I have a lot of people saying, look, the properties that I have right now, they're just eating me in CapEx, or I've got to dump a bunch of money in. Like, I don't have the means to go out and buy more properties in 2026. I hear you. I feel you. We've had a big CapEx year this year as well. But I've got some strategies that you're probably not thinking about that's really going to make a big difference as you move into 2026 and start planning on some acquisitions. But I'd like to hear from you guys in the chat. What else would you like to get out of today? Or is that good? I know, again, we're going to get into tax strategy, also some optimization, and then again, some ideas for leverage. So we're going to cover quite a bit, but let me know in the chat what's most important to you guys, or what really is on your radar for the next 6 weeks, believe it or not. 6 weeks left for this year. Let me know in the chat. I want to make sure that this is the most valuable session here. My intention is that you guys, again, take action and you have, some good things that you can work on while it's kind of the quiet time, again, before the end of the year. So go ahead and let me know in the chat. Feel free to share what's on your mind, what's most important to you, some things that you want to tackle before the end of the year, or maybe you're all good. Maybe you're like, I'm good. I also have a poll, actually. Maybe we can start there. Let's see if I can find that button. All right. We'll do this. Let me know. Guys, how prepared do you feel for year end financially? Do you feel totally on it? Maybe that's some of you feeling like, hey, I've been planning for this time and I'm good. I've got it. Maybe some of you feel like I'm a little behind. I know that there's 6 weeks left, but this is maybe the first time that I've been thinking about it. That's totally okay. I know some of you guys are feeling that right now. And then maybe some of you were like, what year-end plan? I wasn't even thinking about year-end until I saw this session, and I don't really know what I need to be doing, but that's why you're here. So if that's you, that's totally fine. See, see some honest folks answering that way too. Awesome. Cool. All right, I'm going to leave this up for just a few more minutes because, again, I want to make sure that this is the most valuable session for you guys. I mean, hopefully all year. The best way that I can deliver upon that promise, though, is that you guys are really engaged in the chat. You ask really good questions because, again, I'm here just to share what we're implementing and different strategies that we're deploying in our portfolio that are actually really, really cool and incredibly impactful. So I'm super excited to take you all kind of behind the scenes, if you will, today. So cool. So Cecilia is saying, looking for creative ways to fill vacancy going into winter months. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna earmark that. We can definitely talk about some things that we're doing in our portfolio to preserve occupancy and also to fill vacancies. We've actually had quite a few vacancies this year. if I'm being just honest with you all. And if for those of you that maybe are in our inner circle and you caught my AI automation call, you've heard that we're implementing Voice AI for leasing, and we're also using AI for automations, and that has completely changed the game for us. So anyways, highly recommend watching that call as well if you're there, but we'll get into it a little bit today. All right, awesome. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready to jump in? Cool. So a couple other things to note. The whole session is recorded. So if you have to jump off, I understand we're Tuesday and, some of you are still working full time and trying to manage all of that. So if you have to jump off, no worries. We will get the full recording out to you tomorrow. So, nothing to stress on that. And then, also if there's anything, if you want to implement some of this with your spouse and you're like, oh, what did Jennifer say on that? Again, we've got the full replay, so you guys are good there. Awesome. Are you guys ready to dive in? I'm going to go ahead and get to my slides here. Hit share screen, share, and slideshow. All right, so again, we are talking about smart financial moves that you all can make before year end. We're going to cover 3 main strategies. One is how to keep more of what you earned this year. And we're going to do that through some tax strategies I'm going to share with you. We're going to talk about increasing your profits on any assets or businesses that you already own, right? If you're thinking, how are we going to do that in 6 weeks? Trust me, I got you. So there's still a lot of room to do that. And then again, set you up for expanding in whatever way possible for 2026. So again, we're going to tackle these 3 different areas. My recommendation would be to start with just one area, though. I'm going to share everything with you today. Start with one area, focus on that, and then move to the next. All right. So as already mentioned, you're going to have a blueprint for keeping more of what you earn, a plan for increasing profits and optimizing what you already own, and a way to fund 2026 acquisitions. So hopefully you guys are super excited about that. But let me know in the chat, what would that do for you if you knew that you could make more on what you already own? Again, have a plan. For some of you maybe that have paused on acquisitions, know that you can get back into them and start, getting things rolling again in 2026. And also feel really confident that you're going to net as much as you possibly can on what you've already earned this year. Like, let me know in the chat, what would that do for you? What would you guys do with this information? And again, I'm forcing you to do this because oftentimes, I don't know about you all, but sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees, right? We're in our business, we're grinding it out, we're trying to solve problems here and there, and again, trying to just do all the things, but how often do we really take a step back and look big picture and say, okay, now how can I work on the business as opposed to in the business? And that's what I'm going to invite you to do today, right? We're going to be looking at, again, business as in any rentals that you might already own, and also your personal tax situation, right? So let me know in the chat, what would that do for you? Would you feel more confident maybe moving into 2026? Would you feel like you know exactly what you should do before year end? I know a bulk majority of you all said that maybe you're a little bit behind on that year end plan, or you haven't even thought about a year end plan. So maybe that's the clarity, maybe this is the clarity that you need to move into the next stage for 2026 and know exactly what to do. All right, so cool. Kumar says, yes, I want to figure out how to level up in 2026. Awesome. I love it. Okay, so first though, if you know me at all, you know that I don't sugarcoat things, right? So we do have to have a little bit of a reality check though. Okay, so there's 6 weeks left, almost 6 weeks actually to the date, 6 weeks tomorrow to impact 2025 outcomes, right? So we do have a little bit of a limited time, but again, I'm going to show you that there's still a lot of moves you can make. So the tax strategies and financial decisions do close soon though. So again, I want you to take this information. I want you to take action on it, right? So really, really important. But the moves that you make now are also going to decide your 2026 options, right? So if we wait until January, then you're a little bit behind, right? So that's why I scheduled this in November versus January. All right, so my challenge to you, again, is I want you to implement at least one smart move before the end of the year. So just one. I mean, as you're going to go through these and we're going to be talking about them, as you can see, some of these moves could save you tens of thousands of dollars, right? So it's really up to you which lever you want to focus on first. But the big thing is that you just take action. So I do want to mention though, a lot of people do miss these opportunities. They wait until tax time instead of planning ahead. I'm guilty. There's been years where we really don't know what our tax burden would be until we actually do a little planning with our CPA in April and have to make those payments. So again, don't want you guys to be in that situation. A lot of people also don't know what can still be done before year end. So again, my hope is to really open your mind to the possibilities that the things that you can do in these last 6 weeks of the year that are really going to change that for you. And then some people are really just focused on acquisition and not optimization, which in my opinion is actually where you're going to get the ROI, right? If you focus on optimizing what you currently have first, and then after you've done that, get back into acquisition, you're going to explode your ROI. Again, I have some examples of what that looks like. All right, so the 3 year-end priorities. Number 1 is save. Of course, keep more of what you've already earned. Number 2, optimize, increase the revenue. And number 3, leverage. I know a lot of you said that you are looking to expand in 2026, so this is for you. All right, so first we're going to talk about save. So a couple of different strategies on how you can keep more of what you earn. Now, I'm going to mention, 1, as I'm not a CPA, and 2, there are probably hundreds of different tax levers that we can pull. So I want to just focus on the most impactful and important tax levers that you can pull before the end of the year. So this is not an exhaustive list. Again, this is not a tax planning session, if you will. But there are some things that I really want to flag for you all that, again, are going to make a really big difference if you implement them. All right, but first off, here's the problem. The problem is overpaying Uncle Sam or the IRS, right? I would say that most people miss between 20 to 40% of potential deductions. And then also, in my experience, most accountants aren't very good strategists. They're really paper pushers, right? They're looking at your tax paperwork, for the prior year. And at that point, a lot of times it's just too late. And so we don't want any of you guys to be in that situation, right? As we want to be proactive with some of these strategies and make sure that, if you have a great CPA that's optimized, fantastic. But if you have a CPA that you like that's maybe not strong in these areas, at least you can bring these ideas to them before the end of the year and get a good idea of your tax picture. A lot of people do wait until the following year to figure out ways to reduce tax liability, but again, too late. The most important thing here, though, that I really want to drive home is that every dollar saved is another dollar of deployable capital, right? So if we can save $10,000 that we're not paying to the IRS and deploy that into an existing property or deploy that into something that's investable capital, obviously that has a really big impact. So that's why this is so important. I think a lot of people miss this part is they just think, I'm just saving money. But really the goal here, the whole ethos of Addicted to ROI is that we want to take the money that we're making, net the highest amount possible, and then deploy that into ideally income producing assets that are going to come back and, pay us really high returns. All right, so let's get into 7 strategic tax moves that you can make before December 31st. All right, so number 1, first off, run a tax year projection with your CPA. If you don't already have that scheduled on your calendar in the next 6 weeks, after this session, I want every single one of you to reach out to your CPA, text, call, email, and ask to get on their calendar before December 31st, okay? So if you don't already know what your potential tax liability is right now, I know where we're at, right? Everybody should know exactly where they're at, how much you're either going to have to owe or how much you're going to potentially get back. If you don't have that figure right now, again, get with your CPA, do this before the end of the year because it's so, so important. All right, number two, for those of you parents out there that have parents that have kids that are maybe over like 4 or older, add your kids to payroll. So in 2025, you can pay your kids $15,750 tax free. So let me break this down a little bit. This is my daughter. She is now 10. We've been paying her since she was 5 years old. So currently Dylan earns $14.70, which is the Arizona minimum wage. Okay, so I intentionally made sure that I followed the minimum wage in my state because it's really important that you make sure that you're not overpaying or underpaying, right? It needs to be realistic. So again, I can pay her just shy of $16,000. She files no tax return, which means she has no tax liability. What this does is it shifts the income from a higher tax bracket, which is ours, to a zero tax bracket, which is hers, right? So basically we're keeping all of this money still in the family. It's going to our daughter. We get the tax deduction. She gets the income and it's tax-free. Now we take it one step further. So because now she has earned income, she qualifies for a Roth IRA. So for those that aren't familiar, Roth IRA is basically, it's considered like, post-tax income. Now this is a hack, right? Because she's in the zero tax bracket. So the kids, as long as you pay them under this amount, I think it's a little over 16,000 for 2026. Again, they don't have any taxes. You can take that earned income, a portion of it, right? I think the Roth IRA limit for 2025 is 6,000. I believe that it goes almost up to 7,000 in 2026. All of that money gets funneled over there, and then it grows tax-free for life, right? So really, really powerful strategy here. Again, from a standpoint of you getting your business deductions, your kids getting some life experience, also getting the experience of earning some income. And then the Roth IRA just, again, is like triple benefit here. Who is already paying their kids? I'm just curious. Let me know in the chat if you are already paying your kids, or maybe you've been thinking about it. Maybe you've, talked about it in years prior, and this is the year that you're going to make it happen. Because by the way, again, there's 6 weeks left of 2025. If your child has been doing some work for you, or maybe they're off, for a couple of weeks winter break, they could come into the business, start doing some things. Obviously keeping a log is really important, but you can still pay them in 2025 for work that they're doing. So let me know in the chat if anyone is already paying their kids. Cool. All right. Number 3, I want all of you to review your REPS qualification or consider the short-term rental loophole. So again, this one I'm going to break down a little bit more. All right, so for REPS qualification, so REPS is an abbreviation of real estate professional status. What this does is it allows you to use your paper losses. Primarily, you're going to get that through depreciation to offset active income. So to qualify, it could be either you or your spouse, but either you or your spouse must meet a 3-part test. Number 1, you must spend the majority of your time in real property business. So if you have a full-time W-2, you're pretty much disqualified from that. Number 2 is you need to spend at least 750 hours or more time spent in real estate. So for example, if you have a part-time job, maybe you're only working 20 hours a week. If you can show a log that you have spent more than 750 hours in real estate, you may qualify, right? So of course, you're going to have to meet with your CPA and have that conversation with them. Material participation in the management of property. So that's really important. I've actually gone back and forth with our CPAs over the years, especially when it comes to our out-of-state properties, because they pretty much all have a third-party property management. And so, we keep our own log, obviously, of all of the hours, all of the material participation. And then we also have the paperwork showing that we are making a lot of the decisions, even though we have third-party property management. So for example, we are oftentimes going back and forth about what fair market rent should be, any rent increases. anything that we should do on the unit turn side. In some cases, we're also contacting our own contractors and getting multiple bids, right? And we do that strategically so that we can always continue to keep our rep status going. So for us, we've had it since, gosh, probably 2010, right? So going on 16 years now. And I'm going to show you in another slide, like what this could look like for you. But the most important thing, again, is if you have enough properties and if you can show that you can participate 750 hours a year, this allows for unlimited write-offs. You have to have those paper losses, but again, unlimited write-offs against active income. So for those of you that are trying to qualify for reps, again, pay attention to these metrics here. And then we also, really cool, we launched a tracking app for this. It's called Reps Time. It's a mobile app that is tied to your calendar and also allows you, to add in hours, any, phone calls, things like that. And then you can see at a per property level how many hours you're putting in per property. So really, really cool tool there to help with that. All right, the next thing would be the STR loophole. So what this allows is it allows hosts to use bonus depreciation to deduct paper losses against active income. There's a couple of different ways, though, that you'll need to qualify. Number one is you need to spend at least 100 hours actively participating in your short-term rental, right? So with the STR loophole, that's roughly 2 hours a week. With reps, it's going to be about 14 and a half hours a week, right? So obviously quite a bit less on the time commitment there. But here's the thing, you need to be doing more work than anyone else. This is going to include cleaners, and this is going to include any third-party property management company that you might employ on your short-term rentals. So as long as you can spend 100 hours actively participating and that you're doing more work than anyone else, you will qualify. But the other thing is the property needs to qualify. So your average stay needs to be less than 7 days or less, right? So really important there. You also have to minimize your personal use. It needs to be less than 2 weeks a year. So big thing here, again, Reps Time can help with the tracking of that. But like, let's say, your cleaner spends 2 hours a week cleaning and your average stay is less than 7 days. As long as, again, maybe you put in 120 hours a year, right? And you have a log of that, you could still potentially qualify for this STR loophole and potentially deduct all of the bonus depreciation, especially since bonus depreciation has come back in 2025. If you bought any properties, this would be a really big benefit. Now, I'll be honest, there's 6 weeks before the end of the year. So the likelihood, maybe if you're already under contract on something, you could potentially make this happen, but it's going to be a bit of a long shot, right? So if you can't make this happen in 2025, this is setting you up for the opportunity to take the STR loophole in 2026. Now, the other thing to point out, obviously, you want to make sure that you're only buying properties that provide cash flow and stand on their own. You don't want to be making real estate purchases just for tax benefits, right? That's sort of like the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, if you will. So I just want to make sure that obviously everyone, is really diligent on what properties they buy, because it's really important that you again, get into good deals and then implement the tax strategies from there. All right, so moving on to number 4. So number 4 is, again, an added benefit when you really look at the reps qualification and the STR loophole. So this would be to consider a cost segregation study. And ideally, you don't actually have to get the study done before the end of the year. But I would recommend that you pay for it in 2025. You're going to be able to write off the cost of the cost segregation study on your 2025 taxes, even if they can't go out or they can't complete the report until, say, January or February. And for those of you that are like, what is cost segregation study? Let me show you. So what a cost segregation does is it undoes the default treatment of the entire building for residential use. It's 27 and a half years or 39 years for commercial. What that does is it's going to separate the assets that will not last 27 and a half years, right? A roof's not going to last 27 and a half years or 39 years. And it's going to break those components into 5, 7, or sometimes a 15-year lifespan. So some examples are going to, again, include the roof, the windows, certainly flooring, HVAC, cabinets, countertops, window treatments, specialty electrical, anything like that, right? So again, just think of the components of any building that you might own that certainly would not last 27 and a half years if it's residential, right? So I put this, we've done cost segregation studies on every single property that we own. But this is just a little 6-unit. This one I wrote off $168,000 in the first year off of this little 6-unit building that we bought for it was $415,000, right? So imagine if you, let's say, made $168,000 in a year and you qualified for reps, right? That's an important distinction there. And you were able to do a cost segregation study on a building that you own, your tax rate effectively goes to 0, right? So this strategy is so important. This is really how we pay pretty much no taxes. We've paid no taxes for the last 15 years. So again, though I want to make this distinction, the cost benefit kicks in, I would say at like a $300,000 property value. And again, it's mostly going to benefit those qualifying for reps or if you're using the STR loophole, right? So if you and your property can qualify for the STR loophole, taking that particular property and saying, okay, well, it's no longer residential real estate, it's actually operating as a business, and you do it this way, right? And you do a cost segregation, that's where you can get massive tax benefits, right? So again, it's really qualified. This really helps when you have reps or you're using it for the STR loophole. Again, because we have 6 weeks left of the year, I would go ahead, if you want to employ the strategy, pay for the cost segregation study now, and then it's totally fine if it gets done. Pretty much it just needs to get done before you file your taxes. So if you're an April filer, it would need to be done before April. If you're an October filer, it would need to be done before October. Okay, so 2 more little moves that I want to share. I don't have slides for these because they're pretty easy to implement, and we don't need to go into a deep dive on those. So number 6 would be to host an off-site annual meeting and deduct that. So a lot of times what we'll do as a family is we'll go do an annual meeting for our entities, right? We'll sit down. Our kids are on our board of directors. My husband and I, of course, are members of these LLCs, and we will deduct this as a business expense. As long as you are traveling, I think the metric here is like at least 2 hours. Ideally, it's even better if you fly out somewhere and you have meeting minutes and you can show that you are spending this time for business. It could be a qualified business expense. So again, though, I want to make sure that you all go in this order. If you meet with your CPA and you're good on write-offs, then don't go spending money just to get additional deductions, right? But if you meet with your CPA and your CPA says, look, you have a potential tax bill of like $50,000, then again, go back and see, okay, can our kids do a bunch of work? Can we, pay them their salary for the year? Should we, do the cost segregation study? Also, are there any 2026 expenses that we could pay in 2025? And you're basically just front loading the deduction, if you will, right? You're going to pay them in 2025. They might be due in 2026. There's been years where we've done that. That can make a really big difference. But it all starts with having that tax strategy meeting with your CPA first. All right, and then number 7 would be I would say probably like the last thing that you would implement if you still haven't gotten that tax bill down would be to fund any retirement accounts. You do have until April 15th to do this though. So I put it on here just because if you've, again, pulled all these levers and there's nothing left, this is another thing that you can do. So I have a solo 401k. For 2025, you can contribute, I believe it's $70,000, and put it into your retirement account. That's gonna, obviously decrease your taxable income. You can put it in there. Mine is self-directed, so I use my solo 401k for private lending. I use my solo 401k for investing in private placements, syndications, things like that. All right, let me check the chat, see if there's any questions on that. Okay. Uh, cool. Okay, so some more questions about the kids. So part owners, no, we do not put our kids as owners in our businesses. They do have, when I say kids, we've got a toddler. He's not paid yet. Unfortunately, he's not at the point where he can follow directions. So we're not paying him yet. But our 10-year-old, we've been paying since she was 5. But yeah, they're not, again, they're not part owners in the business. We do have a succession plan in our LLC that basically turns the business over to them, though, with some estate planning as well. But yeah, they do have their own bank accounts. I did a whole session, maybe Jerry Ann, I'll send you an email as well. We did a whole session, gosh, I think it was beginning of the year, of all the different ways that our kids make money. Super fun one, so I'm happy to share that. Kumar asked, do we pay the documentation? So we have a running Google Doc that my daughter is responsible for filling out. She puts the date, how many hours she worked, and a little bit about the work that she did for us. We pay her with a W-2. The W-2 is required for the Roth IRA. Also, 1099 gets really complicated because that would mean that they would have to be employed elsewhere. And at this point, nobody else is going to employ our daughter, right? So yeah, you want to issue the W-2 and then keep a log of all of the work that they're doing. Awesome. Let's see. Ryan, funding retirement accounts until April 15th. Does that require updated documentation from the brokerage? Nope. So it just, as long as you have funded that contribution by April 15th, then you should be good, right? So as long as you have that paper trail, then you're fine. I probably wouldn't wait until the day of, right? If you ever got into an audit and the IRS said, I didn't fund until the 16th, so I would, do it at some point in April. Cool. All right. Is this helpful? Are you guys super excited about some of these ideas? Again, the goal is to take everything that you've already owned and we're going to whittle that out in that tax bill. And again, these are some really, really big moves. So hopefully you guys got at least 1 or 2 ideas that you can implement before the end of the year. Cool. All right. Oh, this is a really good example. So for those of you that are like, gosh, okay, but how does this work when both my spouse and I work and we have high incomes and we're in a high tax bracket? Really cool. I coached a physician couple, and they were making about $600,000 in W-2 income, which pretty much put them at the highest tax bracket, right? So what we did is we did some really strategic planning. Of course, this is with their CPA and their attorney, things like that, right? It wasn't just all me. But what we came up with is that one spouse could go part-time, qualify for reps. Obviously, then they went about buying properties, making sure that they're getting into deals that really, again, stand alone, make sense. And then they went back and did the cost segregation studies that I was telling you about, which basically, got them all of the hundreds of thousands of dollars in that one example, almost per property, depending on what you're buying, right? These cost segregation studies really, really make a big difference. And then started paying their kids. That was something that was totally new to them. They had never thought about. Basically, we completely wiped out all active income, which is absolutely insane, right? So, someone like this, you're probably paying, well over 6 figures in a tax bill to basically take that down to 0. So again, every dollar saved is dollar investable. So they started pumping that back into properties and just continue to build to the point where actually the W-2 income didn't even make sense anymore. And so both of them quit. It was really, really cool. But yeah, that's an example of what this might look like. So some work to do, right? In order to benefit from these, you do have to put the hours in when real estate investing and you have to buy properties, right? So if you don't do those two things, then you can't obviously pull these levers. So awesome. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to increase profits and optimize what you already own. So this is a really, really important topic to me. I find investors get so hyper-focused on acquisition when a lot of times they need to just slow down and focus on what they already own. I guarantee you there is low-hanging fruit in your portfolio, and I want you to identify that. So again, for the next 6 weeks, I really want you to start thinking about that through that lens. Okay, so again, the problem is most people think they have to buy more in order to make more. And the truth is you don't need more units, you actually need better operations. So most people buy a property, turn it over to management, and then they just cross their fingers and hope that the manager is going to do a good job. So for any of you that invest out of state or have, third-party property management, you're probably chuckling right now thinking like, yeah, that was my assumption too, right? And what we've come to find out for 17 years of investing is, again, property managers, they can do a really good job, but they're not really going to be thinking about the things that we're going to talk about, right? They're not going to be thinking about, hey, how can we create additional revenue from this property, right? They're hyper-focused on their operations, which is how can I get paid? How can I keep the units full? Or like, again, how can we make money on the unit turns? So they're not thinking high level like you should be. So a lot of times people miss cash flow improvements hiding in plain sight. So what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes is how to increase revenue on what you already own. Guys, this is going to be the easiest return that you'll get in 2025 is from optimizing what's already under your control. You've already gone through the process of underwriting the deal, writing the offer, going through the inspection, probably going through the appraisal, hiring the property manager, right? You've already done all the hard work. And so now we just need 2 levers to pull on every single deal. We want to look at revenue expansion and we want to talk about expense control. When you do both, you're not only going to increase your cash flow, you're also going to increase the property value. All right, so how do we do that? Actually, I want to share this fun example for those in the inner circle. I actually just did a post today on this little case study that we've got going on here. But this was storage. This was a shop behind an existing rental making $500 a month, right? Yeah, big money maker. So sitting behind a shop, sitting behind the house making $500 a month. We are mid-construction right now. We are investing about $130,000 to convert it into a furnished rental. So a couple things here. Number one is the entire state changed the zoning law, which basically says that, hey, if you can fit it, if you've got a single family house, you can build 2 on your existing property. They're called DADUs. Now there's some overlays on the different municipalities. I'm going to do a whole session on just this next month. It's coming up on December 16th. So we're going to do more of a deep dive here. But anyways, we took that opportunity with the zoning law changes and we're converting this shop into a furnished rental. So on the low end, our new expected revenue on this little shop is going to explode to $3,500 a month. Yes, so we're going to put $130,000 cash and we're going to get $3,500 a month minimum back, right? Who would go for that deal? Who would say, I will pay $130,000 to get $3,500 a month, right? Incredible, incredible return on investment. Now, the other thing too that's really cool is that if we were to sell this little shop on its own, which we're allowed to do with the new zoning laws, we could sell this little shop all day long once the construction is done for at least $525,000. So not only are we increasing the revenue every single month, but we also are getting the bump in property value. Now, why this is really important, other than the fact that obviously our net worth increases and it looks really good on our SREO, is when we go to banks and we have all of these properties that now are worth a lot more based on this forced appreciation, what are the banks going to look at us and say? Right? They're going to think, okay, great. We want to lend more money to these investors. We're going to talk about that in section 3 here in a minute. All right, so this is a really fun project. I'm super excited to share more about this next month. All right, so 4 things that you can do before the year end to increase your income in 2026, or maybe even increase before the year ends. All right, number one is I want you to find the low-hanging fruit at every single property that you own. This is going to be including your primary residence. So for those of you that are watching that are like, I don't have any rental properties yet, okay, like no worries. There might be some low-hanging fruit on your existing single-family home, right? So I want you to truly go through every single property and look for the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to give you some more examples here in case you're like, I don't know what the low-hanging fruit is. Don't worry, I'm going to share some more here. Okay, so here's another low-hanging fruit that we identified in our portfolio. We own these 2 little single-family homes, okay? So this one here, it's about, gosh, I think just under 1,000 square feet. And then this one, it was a detached garage that got added to, I don't know, it was like that when we bought it. I think this one is like 1,200 square feet. Okay, so it was interesting though. We have all of this yard space. This is on the north lot. We have all of this yard space. This is kind of parking that truly isn't getting used. This is an alley. This is a pretty busy road. Tenants park here. These tenants park here, but we've got all this unusable space. So I went to my husband and I said, how can we get this yard space that just has some fruit trees making money? We met with our planning team, and our planning team came up with this little drawing and said, we can add 2 ADUs stacked as a duplex right here in the backyard. We can meet the parking requirement here from the alley, and we're just going to build this little duplex box that's going to create more revenue. So let me show you what this looks like. So again, we've got the 2 single-family rentals with the side yard. We're building 2 ADUs so that we can go in under that zoning law. It's really important to make sure that you're working with the right consultants that know how to use the language, if you will, to get these projects going. But basically, this is going to increase this property value by $900,000. That's what the going rate is for little duplexes like this in this area. The other really cool thing, I think I'm being a little bit conservative on this, but we will add an additional $4,400 a month in income, again, from this little tiny side yard that literally right now has fruit trees that we're doing nothing with. So we're turning this non-income generating space into massive appreciation in value and $4,400 a month in additional income. So again, most people would look at this and say, there's not enough room to build anything, right? But again, it says 25 by 40, it works. We can make it work. All right, number 2 is I want each and every one of you to go back and audit every single property that you own, look at the expenses, and look at the revenue. We did this activity a couple of months ago, and we found, we did rent increases in just one state that we own. We did rent increases of about $480 a month. Like literally tenants didn't even leave. We just sent them rent increase notices, and found an additional $480 a month in income. So I want to show you another example of how we did that with this property. This is a 12 unit in Kentucky that we bought in 2022. So through my expense audit, I realized that, we were paying for all utilities. So, water, sewer, garbage, and it's had a central boiler system. All we did, we left the existing tenants who were on month to month. We charged them, we introduced RUBS. We charged them $50 per unit in a utility charge. So that created $7,200 in annual revenue. By the way, the tenants didn't, nobody left, nobody squawked over it. They were a little like, okay, free rides over. Like last landlord was paying it all. We got to pay for some of it now. But no vacancy created or generated from this. And we found $7,200 in added revenue. The other thing that we did is we were like, gosh, this water bill seems pretty high. Let's go through and do some water conservation. So for those of you that have been around for a while and hear me talk about our apartment complexes, obviously we do this on every single building. But what we did is we went through and added low flow toilets. We put aerators in the sinks, things like that. The facilities that were being used, a lot of water. We did that with the shower heads as well. And we saved about $200 a month, right? So $2,400 in annual savings. So the total impact by literally just paying attention to the P&L and doing these two things was $9,600 a year, $800 a month, right? Not to mention, if we apply the going cap rate, I think we increased the value by like $100,000, right? So I bring this up to say that small operational changes often outperform new acquisitions. Now, this was our idea as the owners of the property, not the property manager, right? So we have fantastic property manager on this building, but we came up with these ideas they implemented. So again, just to drive that home is these property managers are not going to come up with the ideas for you, right? So it's 100% worth the time and the effort of going through all of your revenue, all of your expenses, and say, where can we drive revenue? Where can we reduce expenses? Really, really helpful. Okay, number 3. Also, on the topic of property management, I want each and every one of you to do a property management audit. Now, what that looks like is you're going to go through and you're going to rate the performance of every property manager that you're currently working with, right? Are they difficult to get a hold of? Are they implementing your business plan? Are you having to manage them, right? Where do you think that there might be gaps in either they're overcharging or they are conservative on rents? I mean, these things all come into play. Let me give you an example of what this looks like. This literally was just within the last month. So again, we did a property management audit and we were trying to figure out our old company that we had been with for about 5 years. Our unit turns were averaging between 5,000 and 9,000 every single turn. And it was really disappointing. These were really nice brick buildings built in the mid-90s. And we're trying to figure out, why does it cost us so much money every time a tenant leaves? So anyways, went through the audit and realized something is wrong here. Something isn't adding up. I ended up talking to 7 different property managers, decided to go with a smaller firm, told them the issues that I was having with the other property manager and said, I don't know, can you look at this? Tell me if this is just this market or what's going on. And they said, you know what, I think you're being overcharged on these unit turns, which was, again, our big ticket item that we were spending every time a tenant would leave. So we've had 2 unit turns between the time that the old property management was going out and the new property manager was going in. So we actually have estimates from both for the exact same unit turns. So when we changed the property management companies, we actually reduced the unit turns down to about $1,400. So in this 1 month across these 2 unit turns, we actually ended up saving almost $12,000. 1 unit turn in particular, we got an make-ready estimate. The old property manager, it was about $4,800. The new property manager came in and said, this needs a $300 clean. They leased the unit for the exact same rent as what the tenant that was outgoing had, leased it in 2 weeks for $300 versus the other firm wanted us to pay, again, about, it was like $4,800. Next unit, the other unit, they quoted, I think it was like $8,600. New property management firm, $1,400. So by doing this property management audit, again, I'm literally talking about 2 buildings, 2 units, we saved almost $12,000, which is a significant amount of money. So if you're not already doing this as a rental property owner, guys, this should be your number 1 focus for the next 6 weeks, is going through doing this property management audit and trying to see how you can recover some funds or where there are opportunities to pull in more revenue or reduce the expenses. Okay, so the last thing I want to point out, again, there's not a slide for this, but I just want to flag this because a lot of the clients that work with us and a lot of the people that I coach are really getting frustrated about the insurance premium. So this has been a 2-year struggle, right? The struggle is real. But I just want to remind everybody If your insurance premiums seem really high, then go back and requote. We actually found a company we're using Honeywell for most of our properties, and the savings there has been about 15 to 20%. So again, really, really big item that has saved us a lot of money is just going and getting more quotes. So again, that's another thing that you guys should all be looking at. Okay, so I know that that was a lot, and I hope that you guys are staying with me. We covered everything from building to, again, water conservation to switching property managers. I get that that was a lot. But I want you all to think about your portfolio, and I want you to share in the chat so that we can, again, take some action right here, right now. What do you think is the biggest opportunity to boost income in your portfolio? Do you think you need to do some rent increases? Do you need to do expense reduction? Or do you need to look at a different use? Kind of like my example there, where we are turning the storage into an Airbnb. So let me know in the chat. I want you all to commit to something. Where do you think right now, after going through all of this, where do you think is your biggest opportunity to boost your income? Okay. Oh, Kumar says adding an ADU. Awesome. That's really timely. Perfect. Cool. Who else can think, what is my biggest opportunity? Maybe it's all of the above. Or maybe it's something that you need to go back and look at your P&Ls and say, I don't know, is it property management? Is it we need to increase the income? Is it reduce the expenses? Cool. So Jerry Ann is saying expense reduction. Awesome. Jesse is saying definitely reduction in turnover. I feel you, Jesse. Yep. And adding an ADU on 2 different properties. Amazing. Awesome. Cool. I love it. Okay. Oop, there was one more there. Expense reduction. Okay. Cool. All right. So now we're going to get to the last point, and then we'll bring it all home. Okay. So for leverage, preparing to expand in 2026. Again, I know I made some big promises here. We're talking about reducing tax bills, adding revenue, and now from a place of like, how can we expand on all of these new things in 2026? Okay, so first, again, a good question for you all. If a great deal hit your inbox tomorrow, could you fund it? Be honest, let me know. Maybe that's yes, absolutely. You've got all the funding sources you need and you're good to go. It's just finding the deals. Maybe some of you are like, I don't know, maybe it's going to depend on the deal. It's going to depend on how much money I need. Like, I don't know. And then for some people, it might be not yet. And you need to explore the different capital options and the ways that you can get access to the down payment requirement or the funds that you would need in order to buy that deal. So let me know in the chat. Cool, we got a yes. Awesome. Cool. And you're like, maybe, depending on the deal. All right. Well, my hope is for the next few slides before we wrap up, I'm going to give you some ideas that you haven't already considered for funding any deal that you want to buy in 2026. All right. First, though, the problem is most people wait for the money. I don't know how many times this year I've heard investors say, yeah, I'm going to put a pause on acquisitions right now. I need to replenish my funds. Or I'm waiting for a property to sell, or I'm waiting for something, right? All roads lead to people waiting for the money. And the problem is most investors only buy when the cash needed is sitting in their bank account. And what happens when you do that is that approach limits growth and it slows down momentum, right? So a lot of times though, others chase really cheap deals that never actually perform, right? So some people say, well, this investment is going to take that much money. I'll go ahead and do the smaller, cheaper deals because that's a little bit easier for me to wrap my head around because it's not going to take a lot of money. I'm going to tell you guys, those deals never perform, right? So don't buy the cheap properties. But the thing is, the real issue isn't the lack of opportunity, it's a lack of liquidity planning. So how are we going to solve this? Number one is I want you all to think about how you can build financial readiness right now in the last 6 weeks of the year. So what you're going to do is I want you to review your portfolio equity and also look at some refinance or HELOC options. And some of you might be like, HELOC? Is that a thing? Last time I checked, the HELOC rates were 10 or 12%. It didn't make any sense. The thing is, HELOCs are back. And so I'll share a little bit more about that in a second. Number two is I want you to start preparing updated personal financial statements so that when you do go to those banks or to those lenders, you have everything that you need in order to get multiple quotes and the best deal for yourself. So literally, I have a Google Drive spreadsheet that I update usually every single month that has our full SREO. As the mortgages get paid down by the tenants, I update that. As the property values go up, I update that. As our rent roll increases, I update that. So literally, if I found a great deal and I needed to get a lender letter from any of my banks, I could send that. If they wanted an updated SREO, I've got it. It literally, I would say, takes me 2 minutes to get them the most updated option, right? Because I've built these systems that allow me to do so. All right, the other thing is I want you to start thinking about building relationships with potential private lenders. So in a lot of our deals, we've funded the down payment or funded the entire project with private lenders, forced appreciation, and then gone back to the banks for a refinance, right? So for those of you that are thinking, okay, that's probably too far outside of my comfort zone, no worries. Focus on number 1 and 2, right? And then once you've exhausted all of that and you feel really comfortable and confident in what you're doing, then you can start to build the relationships with private lenders. But if you've already proven yourself and you already have a really good, solid track record of buying solid properties, refinancing them, stabilizing them, why not start the conversation now with potential private lenders? All right, so I want to talk about, I shared with you guys a little bit about our new construction deals. Again, we're going to talk more about those in next month's session, but I want to give you an example of this. So leveraging the equity to build more. This is a little project separate from the other one that I had shared. We own an existing duplex here, and we are building this duplex behind. Problem is we have a really nice first mortgage that I don't want to lose that 3% interest rate, right? So how do we leverage the equity and get all of the funds that's going to be required for all these new builds, right? So really quick, this is also going to add about $4,400 in revenue, increase the property value by 8%. Sorry, $800,000, not 8%. What I did is I went to a local bank and I said, hey, I've got all these properties. Here's my SREO. Is there enough for you to do a HELOC in second position? Because I've got all these super good interest rates, back in 2020, 2021, we did a whole portfolio refinance when the interest rates went so low. So I don't want to move. I don't want to touch those. Will you do a second position HELOC? And so we're getting about $350,000 in second position collateral against 2 properties to build this duplex in behind. So that's how we're going to do that. We're going to collateralize 2 other properties to fund the construction. What this allows us to do, by the way, is this interest rate on the HELOC is going to be lower than what the cost would be to go get a construction loan. It's also going to be a faster access to funds. So for anyone that's ever done new construction and the draw process, it's a lot of work, right? You've got to pay the subs, you've got to get the lien releases, and then the bank will send somebody out and then basically give you the fund, like reimburse you. So requires a lot of capital. In some cases, I mean, we've had months where we've had to put out $125,000 across our new builds. So this allows us 100% access to these funds. Obviously, we're only paying interest as we draw, but we don't have to go through the full draw process. So I shared this to say that HELOCs are back. And so if you've got equity in your portfolio after you've already done what I shared on the first slide, which is basically organize all of your assets currently owned, the market value, what you owe, then you can be in a position to go start negotiating with these banks. All right, so your financial leverage plan for 2026. HELOCs are back. I'm going to challenge each and every one of you, even if you don't have a good use for the funds right now, go apply. Most of these HELOCs are pretty inexpensive, depending on, obviously as you're getting over 6 figures for an amount of a HELOC that you're asking for the bank, a lot of times they're going to require appraisals. So you do have a little bit of, money out there that you have to spend in appraisals. But the HELOCs are back. And I think as the rates continue to drop, we'll hear more, I think, soon about that and into next year. You want to get in before every other investor gets in. Right? I'm anticipating a big refinance boom. I'm anticipating the banks are going to get pretty busy here. So you want to get ahead of all of that. The other thing too is a lot of they're not fixed rate loans. So as the Fed drops the interest rates, your interest is going to be lower, right? So again, there's no downside to going ahead and applying now, getting in before the rush, getting that done, having access to those funds so that if that incredible deal hits your inbox today, you've got the funds ready to go. I mentioned that. Yep. And then number three, so for those of you that are like, okay, great, I've got my HELOC strategy, I've got everything I need, but what are the other funding sources? My advice would be to create a list of potential private lenders and start talking to them about funding deals as they come available. You do these three things, guys, and again, you're going to be able to buy any deal that you want to buy in 2026. 2026, and also I should say 2025. We are making significant offers right now, especially with our new construction project. We're trying to go in the market that we're doing these in. The market's sort of down, at least that's what all the agents are saying. So we're making mass offers, $50,000, $100,000 low. These sellers are seriously considering them right now. We're able to go in and pay cash, get a really good deal, put these properties up for rent in, summertime of next year. Right. So again, I would say, I'm saying this for 2026, but don't sleep on acquisitions in 2025. There's still a ton of opportunity. All right. So again, I know we covered a lot. I want to just do like a quick recap, and then I'm going to get to the chat and see if there's any additional questions, and then we'll wrap up. So again, to recap, number one, I would say for the time element, focus on the tax strategy and the deductions that you can take against your 2025 income. So focus there. Number two, then start to go to your current assets and say, how can I improve the net operating income? And we talked a lot about how you can do that. And then number three, go and look at how can I strengthen my financial position so that maybe you do another buy in 2025 before the year ends, or at least set yourself up for buying more deals in 2026. And then again, don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe pick one action in each category and do that this week. We're Tuesday, right? You've got a ton of time left in the week, so don't sleep on that. Awesome. So let me know in the chat, which area are you going to focus on first? I want you guys to commit. I want this to be a session where, again, you make some decisions and then you start taking action. So are you going to focus on saving, optimizing, or leverage? Let me know in the chat. Then I'm going to go to, let's see, Ryan, take advantage of that lazy equity, 100%. Cool. Cecilia says, are you seeing HELOCs available for 5+ units? Yes, absolutely. Go talk to local banks on that though, local to where the property's at. Okay, Ryan, does an unused HELOC show up on credit report? That is a really good question. Ours are all in LLCs. So the HELOCs are personally guaranteed by us, but everything's in a business. So for business credit, it does not show up on your credit report. Maybe it's a little bit different on the personal side. Maybe I would just check with the bank that you're using. All right, cool. So Shar is saying she's going to optimize tax strategy. I love it. And Jesse is going to focus on optimize. Perfect. I love it. Okay, I know that was a little bit fast. I just want to see, maybe we have time for one question. If anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself. You can ask it in the chat. Otherwise, we will wrap it up. But let me know. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can type it in the chat. Or maybe you guys are already getting into taking action. All right, no questions? Perfect. All right. Well, we will send a full recording out of the replay tomorrow. And also, please let me know, one, if you get stuck, two, if you implement these. And I always love hearing that, you all are taking action on what you learned. So please follow up with me and let me know how it goes for you. Awesome, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you got a ton of value. Again, let me know how things go, and we'll get the replay out tomorrow. Awesome, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Awesome. See you all. Have a great rest of the week. Take care.